Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the film X-Men First Class, which is of course the prequel slash reboot to the X-Men franchise that came out last year. But before I get into the review, I want to pose a question, and this is to anyone that's watching, be it someone that watches my videos regularly or whether you're just watching this and you've not seen anything else that I've done. I'm working on quite a big YouTube project right now, like a video that's going to be more elaborate than the stuff I've been doing recently. Like recently I've just been doing me talking about a film and then a still of the film's posters on the screen. The thing I'm working on is going to be a bit more elaborate. It's a top 12 list. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I think I'm going to leave it as a surprise. But my question is, to anyone who's watching, do you think it would be better if I uploaded the whole thing in like a 40-minute YouTube video, or do you think I should split it up into maybe more manageable, more watchable chunks, if you will, like maybe 2 20-minute videos or maybe 4 10-minute videos? I'm interested to hear just anyone's general feedback on that, whether they think I should upload the whole thing in just one big chunk, the full 40 minutes in one YouTube video, which I must say I would prefer, or whether they think it would be more manageable, more easy to watch and keep track of if it were divided up into chunks. I'm interested to hear anyone's opinion, really. So yeah, that's the question I wanted to pose, and I'll get right into the review. So X-Men First Class. This is of course a prequel to the previous X-Men films. In general, when it comes to prequels, I'm quite sceptical of them. I think most people are. The reason I don't particularly like them, or the reason I'm quite anxious whenever I see a film that is a prequel, is because with prequels you tend to find that the story has to end in a particular way. Like the story has to satisfy the things that you already know from watching the previous films, and I think that can really impair a writer's ability to be creative when they're making a story for a film, because they're not allowed to do things with the story. They have to have it ending in a particular way. It stops the film being independent, really. It's always just going to be an appendage of that other film. It's not allowed to do its own thing. So that's why I tend to be quite sceptical of them. But with this, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised. I thought X-Men First Class was good. I enjoyed it. In terms of the other X-Men films, it's been a while since I've seen all of them, but I seem to remember I really liked the first two. Then the third one I thought had its moments, but overall it wasn't that good. And then the fourth one, I remember watching it once, and I thought it was horrendous. So this could have went either way. It could have been horrendous, or it could have been really good. And I think it's more inclined to go to the latter. I would probably say that this is the second best in the series. Like, I still think X-Men 2 is the best. The first X-Men, I felt that even though I thought it was good, it had to devote a lot of time to introducing the characters and developing them. With this, I think because you already have, most people know who the characters are, they didn't really need to spend as long developing them or introducing them, for that matter. So this film was allowed really to act as its own independent story, which I enjoyed. The performances throughout the film were generally excellent. Michael Fassbender, he plays Magneto. He proves himself to be very much a very talented actor. He's a man of the moment, I think the term is. Like, he's in a lot of the big films, and he's a bit of a newcomer. From what I've seen here, he looks as if he's a very good actor, so I look forward to seeing him in Prometheus. Yes, I have not seen Prometheus yet, I know. I think I've promised a few people that I would see it at the cinema and review it, but I've just not got round to it yet. James McAvoy, he plays the Professor, well, before he becomes the Professor. I've not actually seen him in a lot before, but I actually think he does quite a good job in this. I didn't really have anything, so with me saying that, I didn't really have anything to base his performance on. But going on this, I now consider him to be quite a good actor. And it must be said about the two performances that, I mean, they could have just came on and done, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart impressions respectively. And whilst you can kind of see it in the way that they're doing the characters, you can kind of see wee inflections here and there. Yes, that's the kind of thing Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart would do. I think they're very much their own performances, but not to the extent where you couldn't imagine them becoming those characters in later films. So, yeah, and separately, I think they are two very good performances. When I've been reading reviews of this film, one thing that people often say is that they think the chemistry between the two characters in terms of their friendship is really good. If I'm perfectly honest, I did not see that. I did not think there was very much chemistry between these two characters at all. I mean, there was some, but not to the extent where you thought, oh, this is a friendship and this is going to be really tragic when they eventually go their separate ways. But then again, as I said, most other people seem to be praising it. In fact, some people have called it a bromance movie. So, I mean, it might just be me. So that might be something you want to judge for yourself. But I just didn't think there was much going on between them. The other performances, Kevin Bacon as the villain, he's excellent. Kevin Bacon's always a very great actor. He can do a really good villain as well. I actually think they underused him. I think they didn't allow him to shine really as much as they should have, because he's such a talented actor and he can give a really menacing performance. And I just felt as though they didn't. I mean, there were some scenes where he was in those scenes and he was really good, but in general, I think they underused him. Like, there's chunks of the film where he doesn't appear. There's almost no mention of him. But when he was on screen, he was really good, and I would have to praise that. Michael Ironside appears in the film later on. If you don't know him, he was in Total Recall and Starship Troopers, and I think it's a shame because I think he's a good actor. Like, I think he's got a really almost formidable screen presence, but now he's kind of reduced to basically, a cameo in this film. Like, he's in a few scenes towards the end, and he's got a bit of a role, but it's nothing really much, and I think that's a bit of a shame. Speaking of cameos, I'm sure most of you have heard of this one. There's a very good cameo in the film. I'm not going to say who it's by, but needless to say, it's very good. And I think it's the only real swear word in the entire film. Like, they definitely did play this for the sort of American PG-13 audience. So they tried. So obviously they wouldn't have like excessive violence and bad language and all that sort of thing. But they have one cameo and one swear word, and it's excellent. It's probably one of the highlights of the film. And in terms of the story, I think the perfect balance was struck between, seriousness and cheesiness. Look, I mean, with a film like this, with comic book films, they can either play it deadly serious and you're to take it for that, or they can sort of just embrace the preposterousness of their concept and be just outright cheesy. Like, I found with the first few Spider-Man films, like, I thought that they really worked because they embraced just how ridiculous a concept it was, and they didn't try to be overly serious when dealing with it. And I think that's sometimes the downfall of films like this. Like, they've got such a preposterous concept, and they don't have fun with it. I think with this film, it struck the absolute perfect balance between sort of the cheesy, preposterous aspect of the plot and the serious nature of the plot. In general, I thought the special effects in the film were excellent. The action scenes were all very well choreographed, all very well structured as well. I've no real trouble with that. The only exception I had with the special effects was how they depicted the character of Beast. He's of course like the big blue furry guy. One of the things that I always said about X-Men: The Last Stand, and I think even though most people don't really like that film, a lot of people acknowledge that one thing it got right was how they depicted the character of Beast. Like, they had him played by Kelsey Grammer, and what they did was they just had the actor under layers of prosthetics and makeup and all that sort of thing, so that the actor was really there, so that he could give a performance, and so that other actors and actresses knew he was there and could interact with him. I mean, there's actually a lot to be said for that, because I mean, in modern films, you find with CGI, you often just find that you can tell that it's just not tangible. Like, the actors and actresses are, there's a CGI element to the scene, and they're kinda recognising that it's there, but you can tell just from their inflections and all this sort of thing that that the thing that they're looking at is not there, or the character that they're looking at, that CGI is not there. But with Beast, in the way they used prosthetics and all that sort of thing in X-Men: The Last Stand, I thought was excellent. But what this film does is that when the character transforms into Beast, what happens is that they do him CGI, and it just works out horribly. He ends up looking like a blue cat. I mean, the CGI, I don't know what they were thinking, a blue cartoon cat even. I mean, with Mystique, what they did, I mean, they had the actress under the makeup and the prosthetics and what have you, and that looked really real, really good. I mean, obviously it's not real, sorry, that was a bit of a slip there, but it looks, in the sense of the film, it looks as if it's really there with all the other characters, which it was when they were filming. But with Beast, it really doesn't, and I think that impairs the film. But then again, he's only in it in his like blue form for like 15 minutes towards the end, so it's not too terrible. With the film, X-Men always had the classic allegory of like the civil rights movement and what have you. Like, the Professor's supposed to be a Martin Luther King figure. He's advocating non-violence and everyone working together and believing in the good and the human nature and everyone to work together and be moral and Christian and in harmony with one another. And then of course you have Magneto, and he's supposed to be like a Malcolm X type figure. He believes that there's no changing anyone's opinion. The humans are always going to hate them. Yeah, I mean, if you know your history in that respect, it should make sense to you. But that was always the allegory intended in the X-Men comics and what have you. Like, I've never read the comics, but I've been informed, and you definitely see snippets of it in the films. To be honest, I think one of the downfalls of the X-Men films, like even the one I said was really good, even X-Men 2 and this one, is that allegory of, like, whether it be racism or whatever, a minority group being persecuted, if you're going to reference it, if you're going to make an allegory to it, I think you really need to do more than just present that allegory. Say something different about it. Like, I mean, this is a far off analogy, but one of the reasons I didn't like the film District 9 was that it did have an allegory. Like, obviously it was an apartheid allegory. I didn't think it did anything interesting with it. It didn't say anything. It didn't make a comment. It didn't add anything other than, okay, this was something that happened in the past and it was wrong. I mean, I don't mean to undermine things like that, but that is just how it's depicted in these films. And I think, for them not to say anything about it, like for them just to present this allegory and so people can say, oh yeah, he's supposed to be Martin Luther King and he's Malcolm X. I think just saying that isn't enough. I think if you want your film to go that extra level, you should really add something to it, add a commentary, if you will. And I think the X-Men films have never really seized that opportunity. Like, they'll maybe kind of throw in passing hints at it, but it's very short-lived. They don't really run with it. But then again, these are popcorn films. I can accept that obviously people go and see them for the action. They don't go and see them for a message. I can understand that. Overall, the film I thought was very entertaining. Like, I was never bored during it. I was never, wanted to take a break and come back to it or that kind of thing. I thought it was very interesting the way it goes through, times in history and places, and the characters speak different languages in each scene. I like that. I thought that was quite interesting. The film overall doesn't feel like a prequel till the very end. Like, it does feel like an independent story throughout the whole thing. But then in the very end, the ending was a bit anticlimactic, and I think it's because all the strands of the story have to come together for like the first X-Men film. I mean, literally in one scene, they cover Magneto and the Professor going their separate ways, Mystique leaving the Professor and going with Magneto, and the Professor being put in a wheelchair, shot in the spine. So, just the way they just packed it all into that final scene. Like, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not spoiling this for anyone. Like, I'm assuming that if you're watching this review, you've seen, or you at least know the story of the previous X-Men films. You'll know that these things occurred. But yeah, just the way that they clustered it all in, I didn't like it. Didn't feel organic. So yeah, I think that's all I've got really to say about this film. I liked it overall. I would recommend it. It was very entertaining. The second best in the X-Men franchise, slightly better than the first X-Men, but not as good as X-Men 2. I really hope they do a. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if a follow-up to this would work, but I would be interested to see it if it did. But yeah, I liked it. It had sound action, sound performances, a sly sense of wit, which I enjoyed, and it balanced the cheesiness and the seriousness excellently. The pace was a bit disjointed. The allegories I didn't think really went the distance that they should have. And the ending was a bit of a cluster, but overall I enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a rating of 6 out of 10, which is good.